Hey, it's AJ, and I noticed there's been a lot of conversations recently about the topic of racism, sparked off by the events surrounding the Collingwood Football Club and the Do Better report. And a lot of people asking themselves, is the club actually racist? Is their president racist? Is Australia a racist nation? And the answer is, no more than any other culture out there. If you go to Google and type in racial slur, you can select the perfect insult to get at the face of every single nationality out there in the world today. We are truly one race, united by hatred for others. So probably a better question to ask is, how can we use these events as a catalyst for change and growth within our own organizations? How can we bulletproof ourselves for the organization of tomorrow beyond the changes of today? And it is my sincere hope that every single organization here in Australia undertakes a similar review and really holds a mirror up to themselves and their practices. Because based on my experiences, we definitely have a problem. But it might not be the problem you think we have. Now, again, I want to stress that these are my experiences. I can't speak for anyone else, and I do not want to diminish anyone else's negative experiences out there. But as a professional speaker, the industry that I operate in is the speaking, meeting, and events industry of Australia. And let's just say that my problem isn't racism, it's prejudice. Now, you might be wondering what the difference is between the two. And look, they are very similar. Racism is a form of prejudice, but the way I navigate situations is that I consider racism one race that considers themselves superior to another race, and they act accordingly. So the challenges that I face isn't exactly racially motivated. It's a prejudice, in particular, a familiarity bias, which is an unconscious bias. And that is, I believe, the biggest problem here in Australia. Let me explain, again, using my own experiences. So the way professional speakers get booked is that often their profile will be submitted to an event planner or an event organizer or coordinator, and there will be several profiles there to pick and choose the right speakers for that particular event. Now, the problem comes when profiles of people who look like me are stacked up against profiles of people who don't look like me. And there's something there's something about these profiles over here that just feels a little bit more suitable. And there's a reason for this. Let me show you the speaker lineup for two of the most important conferences, pivotal events that happen every year in the speaking, meeting, and events industry. And these events happen right at the start of the year, and they set the tone. They raise the benchmark on all of the activities that happen throughout that year. Let me see if you notice something interesting about the speakers. So this first conference is AIM, and that is the Asia Pacific Incentives and Meetings event. And now this is the 2020 lineup, so a year ago. So let's take a look at all their speakers. Some more speakers. More speakers. And these three. Did you notice? No one that looks like me. Interesting. But that was a whole year ago, and we've gone through COVID, so maybe this year's lineup will be better. So let's take a look at the current lineup of speakers for the Professional Speakers Association of Australia. They are the preeminent society that represents professional speakers. Let's take a look at who they've chosen to represent their speakers and teach the best of the best to the rest of their members. Speakers. Again, no one that looks like me. Now, why is this an issue? As I said before, these two conferences set the tone for the year ahead, which means clients who book speakers come to these events to get exposed to new topics and ideas and the speakers that drive them. So that later on in the year, when they're actually planning their events, when a whole stack of profiles that resemble the speakers that they saw, well, it's natural choice that they gravitate towards these profiles because it seems familiar to them over these other profiles that don't seem as familiar to them. Let me explain this to you in another way using neuropsychology. Within our brain, we've got a set of nerves at the brainstem called the reticular activating system. And without getting too technical, the job of the RAS is to filter out information because we are so bombarded with a whole bunch of stuff. So the RAS system in our head acts as though a filter, which means that once you've triggered it with new information, almost like a gate that says, yes, I will accept this information, all of a sudden we gravitate towards making choices that make sense to us. So it's exactly the same science that you have when, let's say, yourself or one of your dear friends buys a new car and they come over and they brag all about the features, and all of a sudden you start seeing this car everywhere you go. Now, the cars have always been there, you've just never noticed it. It's exactly the same science as play here, which is why this is a familiarity bias, not a racist call. None of these event organizers, none of these amazing, powerful speakers out there would even have one bone of racism within them. They would be the sort of person to come up to me and invite me, people that look like me, home to their house and have dinner. It's not a racist thing. It's a familiarity bias, and it's an unconscious bias. And once you are aware of it, you can address it. Let me show you another conference lineup, and I want you to pay attention to the lineup of the speakers in this particular lineup and see what you notice. Take a look at this. So this is the CIO Leaders Australia Conference, and these speakers are Chief Information Officers of some of the largest companies here in Australia. Take a look through the speakers. Do you notice anything? Some more speakers. A few more speakers. And the MC. Did you notice it? Because we've been talking about it now, you would have noticed that several of the speakers on that conference looked like me. However, if you've been paying attention to the amazing work done in the space of gender equality, you would also know that there were only 2 female speakers out of that entire conference lineup. And that isn't cool. You could do a simple search on LinkedIn and find so many more powerful female CIOs that could easily have been booked for this conference. But that, my friends, is the power, the ugly power of familiarity bias combined with unconscious bias. And fixing it is really up to all of us. We all need to come together as champions for change, not just to do better, but do betterer. Go beyond what's currently being done out there to address familiarity bias and really bring the unconscious to light. Call out behaviors when you see them, because only then can real change happen, and only then can the future be brighter than it is today. If you'd like to see more of my thoughts around this topic and hear more about my personal experiences, please check out my video, The Difference Between Racism and Prejudice, on my YouTube channel. My name is AJ Kulatunga. Thanks for watching this video and being a part of this particular conversation. Whatever happens in business and in life, I wish you nothing but success. Take care.